RJG CoPilot Menu Options, Setup Menu. The CoPilot Setup Menu allows for the ability to access and edit information regarding specific job setups. For our example, we are currently in the Setup menu, but the Setup menu can be accessed anywhere in the CoPilot software by selecting the three lines in the upper left corner of the screen. And from the list of options that appear, selecting Setup. The Setup menu shows all of the cards available for the machine, mold, and process. You may need to scroll down to the bottom of the screen to view all of the cards. On the Setup menu, green check marks on cards indicate that the option has been set up. Any cards without green check marks that are grayed out indicate that option has not been set up yet. We have the option to filter the view of the cards that are displayed. On the right side of the screen, under Filter, there are the options, Machine, Mold, and Process. When any of these circles are outlined, and the words are in green, this indicates that the corresponding cards for that filter are visible on the screen. For our example, we can see that Machine, Mold, and Process are all in green, so those corresponding cards are currently visible on our screen. If we wanted to remove the machine-related cards from our view, we could select Machine. And the machine-related cards would be removed, and the machine filter button is now gray. If we wanted next to remove the mold-related cards from our view, we could select Mold. And the mold-related cards would be removed, and the mold filter button is now gray. And if we also wanted to remove the process-related cards from our view, essentially removing all of the cards, we would select Process. And now the process cards have been removed, and the process button is gray. To bring the cards back into view, we can simply reselect the buttons, one at a time. We also have the ability to change the size of the cards by selecting the options under the View section. Currently, the Expand option is green, indicating that the cards are showing the expanded view. If we select Collapse, the size of the cards shrink a bit, and generally show just the titles, and up to 3 lines of information. To return back to the expanded view, we can select Expand. And the cards are returned to their larger, expanded view. To view more information about a particular setup option, or to edit the current settings, we can select any of the cards. For our example, let's say that we discovered that the screw diameter on our machine is incorrect, and we need to make a change. To begin to do this, we will select Machine Settings. This brings us to the Machine Settings screen, where we can see the current machine name, screw diameter, and machine type information. There is also an alert letting us know that a job is currently running. If you want to change settings, please stop the job first. For our example, our screw diameter has been saved as 1.25 inches, but we found that it is actually 1 inch, so we need to change this. Per the alert, we need to first select Stop Job. After selecting Stop Job, the input fields on the screen become editable. To edit the screw diameter for our example, we will select the field and type 1 into that field. Then, we can select Save to confirm the change. After selecting Save, the screen will quickly show the machine settings screen with the updated screw diameter outlined in green, and then proceed back to the Setup menu. Here, we can see on the Machine Settings card that the screw diameter has been updated to 1 inch. For an example of how to set up a card that is currently in gray, indicating that it has not been set up yet, we will select the Machine Outputs card. This brings us to the Assign Outputs section, which will allow us to make the changes required to set up that card. For our example, we would like our output relay for sorting and velocity to pressure control for decoupled 3 molding turned on. To begin to do this, we should select the toggle to the left of the first sensor listed to turn it to the on position. Next, we can select the first sensor in the list, which reveals a list of sensor types. Since we are turning on the sorting output sensor for our example, we should then select sorting. For the location, for our example, we will select Good Control. Selecting Good Control tells the CoPilot to treat all parts as bad until they are proven good. To set up the second sensor, we should now select the toggle to the left of the second sensor to turn that on. Next, from the list of remaining sensor types that appear, we should choose Control. Then, for our example, for location, we will select V2P, also known as velocity to pressure, from that list. Now, we can see that both of the sensors for our output relays are in green, indicating that they have been set up. To continue, we should select Next at the bottom right of the screen. This brings us to the next output relay option, but for our example, we do not need to set up any more of this type of output relay, so we can select Next again. This brings us to the analog output setup option. The analog output is for 0 to 10 volt options, used if you do not utilize an output relay. Since we are not using any analog outputs for our example, we can select the Save and Next button. We are returned to the Setup menu, where we can see that the machine outputs card now has a green check mark, indicating that option has been set up. Since we needed to stop the job to make the changes for our example, we should now restart the job. To begin to do this, we should select the CoPilot icon at the top center of the screen. This reveals some information for the current job. To restart the job, at the end of the row, we simply select Start Job. After selecting Start Job, we are brought to the job dashboard as confirmation. It will take a few cycles for the CoPilot to fully populate the data here. Thank you for watching this video regarding CoPilot menu options, Setup menu. For further assistance, please refer to the product manual or contact our customer support department at support@rjginc.com or by calling 1-800-472-0566.